Welcome everybody to Singing for Success: How to take charge of your career. We are really excited to put together this workshop today because this is something really near and dear to us. We struggled for a long time to figure out how to find a successful path in our performing careers, and we want to make sure that other people don't have to struggle through that same kind of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you stick around to the end to today, we do have a little a gift for you. We have an exclusive free offer just for the people that are on this call today. So stick around to the end to see what that's all about.
Yeah. So we're Doctors Graham and Stephanie Anduri. Some of you already are familiar with who we are and what we do from our Facebook group or from various events that you've attended. We are both classically trained singers. We did all 3 degrees in vocal performance. And have performed nationally and internationally and done lots of really cool things with it. But we struggled to get our careers going when we first left school, and it's because we didn't feel prepared. We knew how to sing, and that was about the end of the list, right? We didn't know
Right.
any of the other tools that were necessary for us to build careers. And as 21st century singers, that's quite a challenge. There are lots of things that just we don't necessarily feel prepared for when we are entering this world of music.
Right.
So we wanted to create something that could help that.
Yeah. So I mean, we went through our bachelor's degrees and our master's degrees, we did a bunch of pay to sing programs, training programs, and stuff when we were younger. And then we were trying to get into these professional young artist programs, and we just weren't having any success with it. We were doing audition after audition after audition, and nothing was coming from it. And we just didn't know why. Like we kept getting really positive feedback from people on our school performances that we had done. We knew that we were singing well. We knew that we were doing things the right way, or we thought. We just couldn't figure out what was missing. What were those
Mm-hmm.
missing ingredients, those missing components to finding some success in that career path. And we really just, it was like, oh, if we could just have somebody tell us like what we're not doing right, what are we missing, what are we not getting that, or what are we not seeing that's preventing us from being successful?
Yeah.
We just didn't have that. We really
Right.
had to figure out a lot of this stuff over years and years of struggling on our own and figuring it out the hard way. And it often felt like once we did start to get some success, we were starting to get cast in different shows and getting various gigs that actually started to pay some money. It felt like we had missed the boat a little bit. We were too old to do those young artist programs anymore,
Mm-hmm.
and we hadn't like been discovered, so to speak. And so sometimes it felt like, well, are we too old to make this happen? Well, the answer was no. Obviously, we've made things happen in a big way since that time. And so now we want to share what we have learned over the course of these past 10, almost 20 years now,
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, how
20 years. Oh.
what we figured out the hard way to find success in our careers. And it was very different than what we were always told we were supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
There are just so many missing components that we don't really consider when we think of starting a career as musicians. We go to school, we get the training, we work on our voices, and we really get the idea ingrained in us that that is what we need in order to be successful singers. We have to be really, really, really good singers, and that's fantastic. But it's not the only piece. And so finding all of these things really helped us to give ourselves permission to have a career rather than waiting for other people to offer it to us.
mhm.
Because that's such a challenge. I mean, you never know what you're up against. You walk into an audition, and we have these huge cattle call auditions, right? And somebody just walked into the room and sang the same arias that you're singing right before you go, and so you've got all of these nerves built up, and you have no idea what the judges are looking for, and you have no idea who has already sung. You don't know if they're hungry, if they're grumpy because their kids weren't listening this morning. You're sort of at the mercy of just the way that things have always been.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until we decided to just take charge of our careers and to build opportunities for ourselves to thrive that doors began opening for us, and we really could build the life that we
Yeah.
had dreamed of.
Right. Monica says, I love the waiting to be discovered thing. Feel like I'm always on standby waiting, but I know I need to take charge of if I really want to do this. And
Yes.
yeah, that's really, it comes down to like, we don't want to just keep asking permission to sing. We don't want to ask permission to have the career that we know that we can do.
Yeah.
So once we started figuring some of these things out, we started to create our own success. We went on to sing nationally and internationally. We sang at Carnegie Hall. We did a TED Talk. We started presenting nationally and internationally. We became university professors and started teaching. And then because we had gone through all of this stuff and figured these things out ourselves, we were able to help our students find a faster track to success, so they didn't have to go through all of those same struggles that we did.
Absolutely. There was a huge marked difference between when we had gone to school and the students that we began teaching as like early professors, following the path that everyone else had always guided us through, versus when we began to really dig into this stuff. What is it that's missing? What can we provide our students? And we watched our students go from, having some success, maybe small roles here and there, to then our students started getting into top tier programs, started winning competitions, started performing nationally and internationally. And it was like the biggest joy to watch them take off. Like, I'm ready to cry right now just thinking about how electrifying it is when you get a text message from a student to be like, I just won this Bologna competition, this international competition of singers. I just did this and this and
I
this.
just got cast in this new role in
Yeah.
some other part of the country
It
somewhere.
is the biggest joy for us. And so we want to provide all of that for everyone we possibly can.
Right. So we actually ended up leaving the higher education system recently because we saw that there was a significant gap, or there were many significant gaps in the education that singers were getting that really left them completely unprepared for a serious performing career in the modern world. Because really what a training regimen, when you go through school, when you go through these pay to sing programs, or you go through voice lessons, you're training your voice, right? You're learning how to sing. And of course, you got to learn how to sing. Like, that's a given. You got to be a good
We all
singer.
recognize, you can't be a bad singer and also have, although Bob Dylan, we might disagree.
Bob Dylan figured it out, but
at some point, yeah.
But you gotta know how to perform your craft. But that's kind of all that we learn how to do when we're going through school. We learn how to sing. We learn how to move on stage. Maybe we learn some music theory. We learn some music history. But we don't learn how to be professionals in a career. And so we decided we needed to create something that gave people those resources, that gave people those skill sets and those mindset shifts so that they could be successful. And we just saw that there were so many talented singers out there that were getting left in the dust, that were not they were not getting the opportunities that they should have had because they didn't know how to create those opportunities. They didn't know how to stop asking permission and to make things happen on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost as though you're in like kind of a prison when you try to enter this world. You're in a prison of, these are the walls that are my experience and what I am allowed to do. This is my path. This is the only prescribed path that I must follow, and you forget to check the door, and the door just opens wide for you. It's pretty cool to watch all of this happen, and you stop having to worry about whether or not the right people will hear you, and you just begin taking charge of that.
Absolutely. So that, the old way of doing things that we've figured out is not really serving, it didn't serve us, it's not serving other people, is, you go through school, you get maybe some pay to sing things going on, you go to grad school, you get some more techniques, some more stage time if you're lucky. You hope to get into a young artist program, and then you hope to get discovered. You hope to maybe get an agent, and then you make it into the big time, whatever that might mean. And then you're just, you're hunky-dory at that point. Well, that doesn't really work for most people. In fact, that only works for a very tiny percentage of the singers out there. Everybody else that tries to go down that path end up having to figure things out in a different way. And many of them end up washing out entirely because they figured, I failed. I didn't make it. I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I didn't get onto that path the right way. And so I have to quit my dream and go do something completely different.
And I
that's
think
so sad when that
it's
happens.
so sad because artists, we feel so compelled to share ourselves. Like we all got into this because we felt a deep, deep need to express ourselves and then to silence ourselves by leaving this field to pursue something that is so different and that's so sort of vanilla compared to what it is that we are craving, what we're yearning for is just, it's a travesty. It's, yeah.
Yeah. So instead of doing things the old way, we're trying to figure out how we did figure out, and we're trying to help other people figure out how to do things in a new kind of 21st century approach that again lets you stop asking permission to have that career. It lets you take charge of your life, take charge of your career, create your own path, and custom tailor your career to figure out what's going to be your version of success and fulfillment, and what leans to your strengths and your passions and the things that make you unique, set you apart from the rest.
Yeah. And the coolest thing about this is we're all multidimensional. Like we're singers, but we're so many more things. And there are so many incredible ways to incorporate all of these passions, all of these strengths that we have, to incorporate all of that into a successful singing, musical, fulfilling career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what are these ingredients to success? Let's get right down to it, because we got a lot to cover today. So like we said, obviously you got to be able to sing. That's like that's a given. You got to be able to deliver on stage. You got to be able to perform. So we won't even get into that one too much. That's just, we know that's one of the key ingredients. But the problem is everybody thinks that that's the only ingredient. And I remember thinking that myself.
For sure.
I remember thinking like, well, if I actually wanted to be a guitar player for a long time, it's like, if I could just get to be as good as those, rock star guitar gods, then obviously I'll just get discovered and I'll have this amazing career just based on how amazing my technique is. And then that transferred into singing as well. If I could just be as good as these people that I see on stage at the Met or wherever, then I'll obviously have a good career because I'm that good. And it's just not the way that it is. That's only one small component of what it takes to be successful. Yeah. Important, but small.
Yeah. Who has known a singer or has been a singer who is singing at the level of all of the people who are, making it into these big houses and still hasn't found success on that path? Mm-hmm. Like I could name 20 people off the top of my head who
exquisite singers that just don't have that level of success because they're missing these other key components.
Absolutely.
So what are these other key components?
So first of all, self-marketing. This is huge, and this is something that we just don't learn when we're in school. It's so important, knowing how to market ourselves. And the biggest piece of this is understanding what we are selling.
Right. So what do you think, those of you that are here right now, what is the product that you sell? Like you as a singer, as an artist, as a performer, you are a business. You are your own kind of business entity. So what is it that you think that you're presenting to people? What are you selling? What is your product that you sell? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What do you think that is? Because it may not be exactly what you think, but I'm curious to see what you all have. An experience, okay? Mm-hmm. Cool.
Exposure to other cultures. Absolutely. Yeah. Both of those things are absolutely accurate.
And emotions.
Oh, and our other emotions. Yeah. Yes, completely. All of those things are absolutely accurate. Essentially, all of those things get bundled together to mean that we are offering transformation. Mm-hmm. We are offering our audience an opportunity to experience something so deep that they feel different when they leave that concert hall. Right. And if we only, our goal is always to capture everyone, right? To tell a story so authentically that it pulls in every person in our audience. But say that just one person is transformed by that experience. Well, they go into the world a different version of themselves, and they interact as this new version of themselves who has more empathy, who has more compassion, who understands other people's experiences in a different way. And they address all of the people at their works, in their families, they address these people differently from this transformed viewpoint. And then those people are changed and they go out into the world, and it's this incredible butterfly effect that we have the opportunity to transform people's lives. Guys, this is huge.
Right. And if you understand that, you understand that you're not selling your voice, you're not even selling you at all. You're offering that opportunity for something, for a deep emotional experience, a transformative experience. Then that's going to change the way that you present yourself. It's going to change the way that you market what it is that you bring to the table, what you have to offer. Alana said the experience of something new, repertoire, culture, emotion,
Yes.
storytelling.
Storytelling is huge.
Love that.
Yes.
And so, understanding how to go about this self-marketing thing, what does that even include? I mean, it's maybe, what we see a lot of times is people like, hey, come support me at this show that I'm doing, or come to my recital because I need support. And again, that's selling yourself. That's selling your voice. People don't come to a show to support an artist unless it's your mom. They come to have that experience.
Right.
They come to feel something new.
Yeah, in the same way that when you go to the movie theater, you're not paying to support Leonardo DiCaprio. You're paying so that you can be moved by the story that he's telling, right? You don't actually care how he feels about you showing up at the movie theater. And it's the same thing. When we're on stage, it's not about us. And that's such a challenge for us sometimes when we are in this paradigm of, if my voice is good, if I build it, they will come, right? The paradigm totally shifts when you start realizing that it's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about what you are able to provide for them, for your audience.
And so self-marketing can look like a lot of different things. It can entail very many different modalities. So, leveraging social media, getting in contact with people using email, going and talking face-to-face with people. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Like,
Websites.
who does that anymore? But yeah, getting a really high quality professional website, getting like a demo tape, as we used to say back in the day, putting a demo tape together, but a highlights reel, getting some way that you can present what you have to offer to people that pull the strings to give you those performance opportunities, or to create your own performance opportunities. And that really gets us into their second point here, which is having that entrepreneurial spirit, creating opportunities for yourself. So again, that you're not asking permission for those careers, for those performance opportunities. You're making them happen yourself. You're taking charge and forging your own path.
Yeah, and this requires so much creativity and so much resourcefulness that I think we are taught sort of out of. I think we are taught, okay, here is the path before you. These are the steps that you must take. And as soon as we start limiting ourselves in that way, we stop thinking resourcefully. We stop thinking about, how can I leverage this contact? How can I leverage this opportunity that I had? Even bigger than that, how can I leverage this thing that always has felt like it has been holding me back? How can I turn this into a strength rather than a weakness, than something that's an impediment,
And one of the big things that we try to help our clients do is to turn weaknesses or perceived weaknesses into strengths. So, if you've ever been to a job interview and they ask you, what are your weaknesses, what are your strengths? And
I'm way too organized.
Right.
I am extremely early to every event.
Yeah. Well, you try to turn those weaknesses into strengths, right? You try to turn the negatives into something that's positive, that sets you apart, that something new that you can bring to the table that maybe other people can't. So what I would like you all to do that are here today on this call is think of one or two things that you might consider to be setbacks for yourself, and then flip that around, flip that on its head, and think, how could I actually turn that into a strength? How could I turn that into an advantage? How can I leverage that to make what I bring to the table unique, to make something that other people don't necessarily have? We talked about this with several of our clients the other day. We were talking about like ADD seeming to be like, that's a hard thing, that's a struggle, that's a challenge. And
this is me, by the way.
Right.
This
So
is
for
all
you,
about me.
How does that manifest?
So, well, for me, I always thought it was this huge drawback. And now when I'm teaching voice, it's like I can see every single detail, and every single detail comes to me, and I just am there's never a time that my brain has to slow down. It can catch everything. And I always thought of this as a huge hurdle that I would have to overcome, and it ended up being one of my favorite things. It's one of my greatest strengths that
Mm-hmm.
I can teach in this way because of this thing that I had always felt held back by.
Right. And so even for like the story that we just related to you all, that we had to kind of struggle through not finding success early on, that's actually turned into a strength for us because it made us become more creative. It made us become more resourceful. We had to figure things out on our own. And so now we're much more resilient than we would have been otherwise. When things get tough, we're like, well, okay, let's figure out what can we do in a different, how can we look at this situation differently to tackle it and to come out on top. And that served us really well because of what we had to go through early on.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know, those of you on the call right now, what did you come up with? What are the things that you struggle with maybe, or that you feel like might be perceived as setbacks that are perfectionism? Perfectionism,
Yes,
okay.
yes, yes.
Perfectionism can definitely be a drawback if you get too focused on it, right? If you're like, I have to be perfect or else. So that's where we like to say connection over perfection is what we strive for. But at the same time, that means you're also really keyed into achieving things really well, right? You make sure that you do a good job at everything that you do. So then it just becomes a matter of, okay, how do I balance that drive to be good with, okay, there's a certain point that comes like, I can't just wait until it's exactly perfect before I present it because then it'll never happen.
Right, right. And also recognizing that perfection uh, doesn't actually exist, first of all. If it's perfect, it's math. It's not music, right? There's no like exact formula for music.
Mm-hmm.
Music is human, and humans are messy. And so in order for us to relate to it, we have to allow it to be vulnerable. Understanding that musical precision and musical integrity is so important in this. We're not saying not to perfectly prepare your music, but look beyond it, because perfection isn't the goal, connection is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, if it's musically perfect, if it's vocally perfect, that's fine, as long as that's not where you stop, because that's still focused inwardly on self rather than outwardly toward the audience.
Mm-hmm. Several of you were saying self-doubt also.
Yep.
Self-doubt's a big one, or imposter syndrome, or just fear of not having enough, not being enough. And that can be a difficult challenge to overcome as well. But once again, you can turn something like that to your advantage, because you have to work a little extra hard to figure out, okay, what's at the root of that? How can I get to the bottom of what's causing that self-doubt, dissolve it, get it out of the way so that I can be confident in what I have to offer. When you do that kind of inner work, that shadow work, as we like to use that term, but it came from Carl Jung. He figuring out what is within you that's creating these impediments to the free flow of your spirit, of your energy, of your voice. And when you do that inner work to figure out what's causing that and you overcome it, you're operating at a much higher level than somebody who didn't have to work through those same kind of challenges and struggles.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
yes. Good.
So the next component is defining your why.
Yes, and this is huge. I think this is the item on the list that feels the least concrete, and so people think that it's the least important. I would say it's probably the most. Because if you think your why you're doing this is because you're good at it, then the second you start getting turned away, the second you start getting rejected, you're like, well, I'm not good at it. I got to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen that. I could count 20 people, right? So when we recognize that the why is deeper, the other thing about this is that the world is telling us that we're just there to make pretty noise, right? The world doesn't understand how powerful music is.
Right.
And we see this in funding of music programs being cut all over the world. Yes, my why, it brings me joy. Absolutely. When you're not trying to be perfect. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. It's an absolutely joyful experience when we are in creative mode and not analytical mode, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
When we're
And
not self-judging everything that comes out of our mouths.
yeah. And so the thing about, like, society tells us that we're there to just be a distraction from people's troubles of the day. They
Yeah.
come to see a show or they come to a concert so that they can forget about the rest of their life for an hour or 2 hours, and then they go back to it. And we're just there to kind of be the divertisement, the entertainment, right?
We're the background noise of life.
Yeah. But
We're elevator music.
it's so much more than that. We, like I said, we offer that opportunity for transformation. And when we do our job the right way, people leave changed. They
Yeah.
leave that performance changed.
Yeah.
They are not, they don't approach the world, they don't see themselves or other people in the same way that they did coming into that performance.
Yes, absolutely. Monica said, I love moving people to tears. It's
Yeah.
like my very favorite thing. Oh,
Right.
feeling like when they congratulate you at the end of a performance and you can see that they have been moved.
Mm-hmm.
It's so beautiful. It's so connective. I feel so just connected to those people.
Right, because you know you've made an impact that caused them to shift their understanding about themselves and their understanding of other people.
Yes, but you guys, the traditional way that we're doing this is teaching the impact out of singers. It's teaching that, the piece that we're moving people to tears, it's reducing it to mechanics, to a larynx and a pharynx and air pressure.
Yeah, and it just becomes about the accuracy, the perfectionism, right? It becomes about getting it right and doing exactly what your teacher told you to do to get exactly the right sound on every single note and doing all of the right words and rhythms and language and all of that stuff. And so there is no impact left because it's just this assembly of the music rather than animating that music, putting soul into it and sharing that soul with your audience. That's where we really make that impact.
Yeah.
And so that's something I want you to all do right now is we want you to answer that question of why do you sing? This is something we ask everybody we work with. We do this with workshops from elementary school kids up to high school, college, senior
Professional
citizens,
singers,
professional
yeah,
singers,
everybody.
amateur singers. We ask everybody this question because so many people don't think about it. They don't really take time to answer that why do you sing question. And so we've had friends and colleagues that have had actually quite successful careers, but then they get burnt out on it because they're just traveling all the time or they don't know why they're doing it, and it just becomes work. They forget the joy in it. They forget their why. They don't have that motivational factor that keeps them going through the tough times, that keeps them going through when things get rough.
Yeah.
And so if you can remember what your why is, define what your why is, it's going to keep you going even when the going gets tough.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to know what you guys have to say about why you sing. Somebody said, Monica said, it brings me joy. I think it definitely brings us joy to sing. Is there something more to it than that, though? I want to know if there's something that if you can dig a little deeper. And while you're answering that, go ahead and put that in the chat whenever you get a chance. But this kind of leads us to the next point of our next ingredient, which is leaving an emotional impact.
Yeah.
And what did you say? I love moving
Allow me
people to
to
tears.
discover
Allows me
myself.
to discover myself, my roots, and my being. Love that.
Yes,
Love that.
there is so much self-discovery available to us when we sing. The way that we teach, the way that we address voices, like from a pedagogical standpoint, is by making singers aware of their own bodies, by making singers aware of their own thoughts, their own emotional impulses. And because we're walking around in these bodies all the time, and so many things are happening within us that we just don't even recognize because they're subtle sensations. And until we are really drawn to bring ourselves, our consciousness into ourselves and to really dig into what's in there, that is just unavailable to us. And so singing gives us a tool to explore our bodies, to explore our emotions, to explore our thoughts and what's driving our bodies to react the way that they're reacting. And then we become so equipped to like dig into who we are and who we are being and how we can heal ourselves and move forward in a healthier way.
Yeah, absolutely. She said, brings me closer to my trauma, and my voice shows me. That's very deep.
Yes.
Expressing myself, discovering the world through music, exploring emotions.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
These are great answers. And so like I said, that exploring emotions, that leads right into our next point here, our next ingredient to success, which is leaving a lasting emotional impact. Um, there is the lead singer from the band Tool. His name is Maynard James Keenan, and he said in a concert a couple years ago, I saw this video of him. He said that we are merchants of emotion, and I thought that was perfect because that's really we're offering that opportunity for transformation by making people feel emotion. And there's a quote that we use all the time that I love that I have been unable to find who originally said this, but I saw it on the Trans-Siberian Orchestra website about 15 years ago. And it went that bad art leaves you feeling nothing. Good art leaves you feeling something that you have felt before. Great art leaves you feeling something that you've never before experienced. And so that's really what we're aiming to do. We're aiming to make people feel something vicariously through our performance that they've never experienced before. We're expanding their emotional granularity, their experience of what the emotional landscape of the human race is. And when we do that, we're able to help people to understand themselves better and to understand other people better, to create more empathy and compassion and kindness in the world. But we can only do that if we are focused on the right thing. So what do when you get up on stage to perform, whether it's it's a concert, it's a recital, it's a show, it's whatever kind of performance it might be, what is it that you focus on? Where does your mind go? Does it go to this? Does it go to remembering your words?
And blocking and, watching the conductor for cues. Where is your mind while you're on stage?
Go ahead and put that in the chat, because so often I think that's where we're trained to think. We're trained to think about the mechanics of it, the accuracy of it, the perfection of it, the drama and the character. Bingo.
Yes. I read a room. Haven't done it much. I focused on the audience. I read
Focus
a room.
on the audience and read the room. That's good. If we can focus on the message, on the emotion that we are sending out to our audience, then all of a sudden, first of all, that gets rid of all of the nervousness that we build up coming up to a performance. That we're like, oh, I'm getting this performance anxiety because I'm worried that something might not go well. I might forget something. My voice might not do the thing. You don't even think about that stuff.
Yeah.
When you're focused on the message and on the emotion that you are portraying, on the character that you are portraying, even if it's not a show, there's still a character.
Yeah.
But when you have that focus, then all of a sudden, all of that performance anxiety stuff goes away, but you're also becoming much more communicative, much more effective at communicating that emotion that's going to make an impact on your audience.
Yeah. I would also say to the comment, I read a room and I respond to the audience. Those are fantastic qualities to have, but also be the leader of you're in charge. You are in command of your audience. So if you are just reading them and responding to their energy, then you are not in command of the energy. You're not driving where the energy is going to go. You are just allowing yourself to be sort of the victim of it. But when we're on stage, we're in charge. Right, so we are the people who are leading the experience for everyone.
Right,
and allowing ourselves to just sort of acquiesce to their energy can be a detrimental thing in some cases.
Mm-hmm. And you like to say a lot of times that we create a hologram for the audience to step into. We're creating this whole new world, this whole universe that we invite them into our shared reality. And that's how we connect with people, is by sharing the same reality. We're creating that reality for them to step into and share with us and experience through us.
If you're sitting next to somebody on an airplane, it's a total stranger, and that person happens to be a fellow musician, you can talk for hours about your shared reality, which is music, right? We do this every time we meet a musician, we're like, all right, it's go time. There's a 45-hour conversation that's about to happen because we are so excited to talk about it. And so are all of the other people. And so there's this shared reality where we come together, right? If you're sitting on the same airplane next to somebody who does something completely opposite, who has a completely opposite, worldview, who has completely opposite beliefs, it's much harder to create a shared reality with those people. So when we create an experience for our audience to step into, when we're showing them a story, when we're being authentic and vulnerable in our characters, and bringing them to life with authenticity and reacting and responding as they would respond. I say we don't act, we become. We become our characters. We try on their experiences. We empathize with them. And through that empathy, we can build empathy in our audience for their situations.
That's right. And so this is what we call the difference between impeded singing, impeded singing being egocentric singing, right? When you're focused on me as the product, that I have to be perfect, I have to make all the right moves and sing the right notes and do all the right things. And so that can either come across as fear, as anxiety, as worry, or it can come across as cockiness and like braggadociousness, right? Like everybody come and see how good I am at this. Both of those are impeded singing because they're not connecting. They're not focused on the message. They're not focused on providing that opportunity for transformation.
Right. When you're focused inward on your perceived flaws or on your arrogance or your desire to show off how good you are, any of these things, anytime that you're focused inward, you miss an opportunity to extend your consciousness, to extend your awareness, to extend your empathy outward toward your audience.
Mm-hmm. And man, the difference between an impeded performance and a transformative performance is night and day. I've gone into auditions and performances where my voice was not up like today. I'm not feeling my best today, but I've had to sing at various points when my voice felt kind of like this. And I knew it was not going to be at 100%. I wasn't going to have all my high notes. I might have some extra low notes, but it was just not going to do what I needed it to do. But I knew that I could still become that character. I could still convey that emotion. I could still make a transformative impact on my audience. And lo and behold, when I did that, I would still get something out of that audition. I would still get offers from that audition, or multiple offers sometimes. I would still get people that came up to me after the performance and say, I was so moved by what you just did. And so it's not about the voice. The voice is just a vehicle to convey that transformation, to convey that emotion, but it is not the thing that we are selling.
Right. And I say all the time along those lines, we're not the drivers of our voices. We're not the drivers of our, we're tunnels for our voices to pass through. We are allowed to shape them and allow them. And once we do that, once we allow the character and the emotions to take over and shape our voices however they would come out most authentically and most expressively, then we're out of the way. And all of the things that have been impeding us just dissolve.
That's right. So all of these ingredients so far are things that we kind of figured out the hard way ourselves, but we've also noticed over the years as we've sung with a lot of people, for everything from, brand new beginner singers up to people that are singing at the top houses in the world. We've noticed the differences that set those people apart that are having those really successful careers from the people that are struggling or that are maybe not having careers at all. And it has to do with these things, that learning how to market yourself, knowing how to present what it is that you offer, knowing how to be resourceful and creative, how to be an entrepreneur, defining your why, understanding what it is that motivates you. Yeah. And knowing how to make that lasting emotional impact on an audience, knowing how to tell a story, knowing how to keep people coming back for more. These are things that all of the successful artists out there understand and know how to do. The other big thing, the final big thing that is so crucial is investing in mentorship, knowing who to go to when you have those blind spots, when you have those things that you can't quite see what is getting in your way. You don't understand why you're not getting to the next level. And so having somebody that has been through those blind spots that can show, that sheds light on that, says, okay, here's what's in your way right now. Let's develop a plan of action to get beyond those roadblocks. It's so important. And all of the great singers throughout time, throughout history, have had great mentors.
Yes, it used to be, the system used to be, and we realized recently, I thought this was like the first half of the 20th century. This didn't end until we were alive, until like the 80s, that the great singers lived with their teachers and had constant mentorship. They had,
Mm-hmm.
a relationship that was so much deeper than just an hour per week. They had a tribe of people that they were in community with, that they were able to bounce ideas off of and get feedback from. I use my tribe. I can't even tell you how many times I said, and we all do. We have this amazing group of friends who are all professional singers, and we send each other recordings all the time, or different opportunities, and say, help me with this, what can I do? And if I didn't have those people, if either of us didn't have those people, didn't have mentors to guide us, hey, this is something that I've experienced, this is how you should address this, there's no way that we would have been able to like create all of this by ourselves.
Yeah, right. And so that older style of mentorship where you actually kind of like you were an apprentice under a master teacher, where you got not just lessons and not just one lesson per week, but multiple lessons. And then you also got to just absorb their understanding of the industry and of how to be an artist and how to do things off stage as well as on stage. That's so valuable, and it kind of doesn't really happen that way anymore. So what we have created now is sort of this, we call it the new old fashioned way. It's reverting back to some of those ideas of mentorship from a previous era, but doing it in a 21st century way.
Come on, Monica, we're in Colorado.
We're in Grand Junction, Colorado. And so we have this new mentorship idea that we can do in a global sense, in a global community, thanks to the miracles of the internet and modern technology. And that's something that's new to me too. Like I always felt like I was born in the wrong century. I hated technology. I didn't want anything to do with it. I felt like I would have been way better off in like 1900 and just, sing and didn't need mics or anything. But, as the last few years have shown all of us, we really do need what we have today. We need this modern technology to really operate in today's world. And as singers, it's no different. There are so many different ways that we can leverage technology to forge new career paths for ourselves. And that's really what we have created with this program. Yeah. So what we have is a career mentorship program that it does all of this stuff. It helps you with the self-marketing. It helps you with holistic vocal technique. Holistic meaning that we integrate mind and body and heart and spirit.
And through this lens of self-exploration, through bodily awareness and through becoming comfortable digging into yourself and figuring out, okay, it's not just that my legato is bad, but what is happening within my body that's preventing that, right? Because so many teachers will say, this needs to be smoother. Keep this line legato, and they don't tell you how to do that.
Or even why.
To do that.
What's the point of the legato? Right.
So many teachers don't recognize that the reason that high notes are tricky for so many of us is that we have some mindset that tells us that they're hard, which manifests in our bodies as some kind of a flinch that prevents the air from moving or causes, tension in our tongue roots, or all these millions of different possibilities.
Right. We have fears built up around the way that our voices work,
right,
and the way that our voices sound, and we have inferiority complexes. We have all of these different mental and emotional blockages to our voice working the right way that never get addressed in mechanical, mechanics only voice lessons. And so that's this holistic approach to singing is what's going to allow you to become a great performer, a great singer. Learning how to market yourself so that people want to hear what you have to offer, not just like, okay, I guess I'll come and support this person because they asked me to support them. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. And shifting your mindset away from that asking permission mentality, that old way of asking permission for a career, and taking life by the horns and really taking charge of what you want your life to be, right, and moving your life in the direction that you want it to go.
Right. Being in command of your own career so that you can thrive and feel fulfilled and joyful.
Mm-hmm. Defining your why. This is, like we said, we ask this to everybody. Why do you sing? And when you really develop an understanding of what your why is, you understand what your true purpose is as a singer, and you have that motivation to keep going.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You learn how to harness that transformative power of the human voice so that people want to come hear you again and again because they felt something.
Right.
They
In
got
this
something out of that.
in the same way that all of us have singers that we go back to time and time again because we feel moved when we listen to them. We have the capacity to do the same thing to all of our audience if we know how to harness that power.
Absolutely. So here's what's going on. We are looking for a group of really bold and driven singers that are looking to thrive in their own custom tailored careers, people that are looking to make their careers happen, to stop asking for permission, and to just be themselves in their own in a way that feels fulfilling to them, that's not just the same path that everybody did before or that everybody told you should do before, but something that works for you and that really brings you the most joy and fulfillment and success. And so if you are interested in understanding a little bit more about what this program entails and what we can do to help you down that path, then let us know. We have time over the next few days to do some 15-minute discovery calls so we can see where you are and see where you want to be and see if what we have is a good fit for you. If you sign up for that free 15-minute discovery call, this is where that we mentioned at the very beginning of this, we've got that gift that we can give you today, that we can give you complimentary access to one of our group coaching sessions. First one is tomorrow, and it's a transformative singing class, and it's called You Are the Instrument, and it's an exploration of how to apply functional bodily awareness. How do we understand what our body is doing and what our body is experiencing so that we can become our own teachers? We can really supercharge our singing and supercharge our understanding of the voice so that we can be the best that we can be. So if anybody is interested in that, leave us a comment in the chat right now, and we'll shoot you a link to sign up for that free 15-minute discovery call. We'll give you access to that class that's happening tomorrow on March 28th, and then we'll see what we can do to help you achieve your goals.